Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today I am joined by two very special guests, Adrian and Nicole Ondiano. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Very good. Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you guys on the show. I just want to give a little bit of background about the two of you. So Adrian and Nicole are two friends that I met through real estate, actually, and they have been a very impressive real estate investing couple. And you've told me a little bit about your journey. It's a very great story, and I feel that our listeners will also enjoy hearing a little bit about how you guys are doing. First question I want to ask, just to get it started, is what made you guys want to get into real estate investing?
Our background, I know that both of our parents have a little bit of, I guess,
they dabble.
Yeah, they dabble into real estate. My dad was a real estate agent, but he invested a little bit, but not all that much, but just mostly focused on a real estate agent. And then,
whereas my dad, he was a flipper. So my whole life he was doing flips. So I had an idea, but never really ran with anything. Yeah. The opportunity presented itself to get into the real estate market together. Yeah, we kind of wanted to start with a fixer-upper, and it all snowballed from there.
Yeah, and then firstly, like 90% of real estate investor, we picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And really, honestly, we were reading that on vacation. We went to Punta Cana and we're like, hey, let's read this book on our off days or, our off time when we're not hanging out with family. We had one book, we read it together. It's kind of like in class where it's like, okay, you read this part, I read this part. That actually helped us quite a bit because we probably took us the whole week to read the book just because one part we're like, okay, like we're discussing. So like it kind of fueled us together. And literally we came back in November, and by 2 weeks after, we purchased the property. And it kind of, so it was a mixture of the environment that we were brought up in, as well as kind of our own curiosity into, reading books, and that kind of fueled us. Like 90% of all the investors out there were reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then we took action for sure.
That's actually very interesting because, especially when it comes to couples that are into real estate together, right? Because sometimes you see, one person is doing the real estate and then another person is maybe supporting and it's like not their main gig. But you two were started off pretty much together then, right? You started your real estate journey together.
Yeah. So Adrian had a house initially. So he bought his in 2017. But then by 2020, we knew we wanted to move in together. That was like, I guess, the beginning of our real estate journey. 2017
is like when you kind of like got some of the ball rolling. Yeah. And then you really picked up with it full force 2020.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. And granted, like when I bought mine in 2017, I wasn't really paying attention to what the market was doing. It was just so lucky that during that time, it was actually during that downturn in 2017 that now looking back, it was like, oh, that was a downturn. But during that time, I was like, I'm just looking for a home close to work. And I was able to pick one up very good price during that time. And I wasn't really looking yet into, in terms of my knowledge, I wasn't looking into investing. And then reading books, watching YouTube videos, and surrounding myself with like-minded people has definitely kind of like opened my eyes. And I was like, you know what, maybe this is for me. And then she came into my life and kind of encouraged me as well. And then we both encouraged each other to kind of take that leap. And hopefully, it's going to keep going and pay off.
Oh, it sounds like it from what it is I understand you're doing. And you're saying, like, speaking of your work, like, what is it that the two of you do?
I am a registered nurse in the ICU in Hamilton.
And I work at a financial technology company as a customer success manager.
Those sound like actually they're good jobs, and they sound like they would actually help you in terms of being able to fund your real estate endeavors, right? Yeah. So like when you first started out, I'm sure that was a great asset for your mortgage qualifications and whatnot. So it helped you there.
Definitely.
What was the main reason that you feel is pushing you guys in terms of like wanting to continue this? Because I mean, everybody has a goal. What is it that your goal is?
I think we both have a mutual kind of a mutual sense or an outlook of how valuable time really is. I mean, I'm 30, she's 25. We're both relatively young people, but we do know that, time is valuable. And sometimes even after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you don't want to trade your time just for money, because I think that, spending time with family and friends and the people that you truly value is worth more than just, the $30, $40, $50 an hour, whatever it may be. We kind of look to see, like, how can we unlock that freedom of time and real estate was one of those options.
Well, we turned to stocks at the first time, and we got into like the marijuana market, which obviously didn't play out very well for us.
I heard it's a little disappointing.
Yeah. So once we learned there, like we considered that like our tuition for like investing. We tried that. Then we went for more of the real estate lens, and that's where it seems to be working out for us. So we're just going to keep rolling with it. But yeah, the diversification of income was what we were looking for. I don't think either of us see ourselves working to 65. You know, if we're even lucky enough to make it to 65, no one's guaranteed. So I think we both wanted to enjoy our lives while we're young, and hopefully this will get us there.
Pretty much a solid push towards, you know, some financial freedom and some degree of financial choice, right? So at least, because, you know, people always say that they want to, you know, not be working until, you know, their later years. But in truth, even people who I've met in the past, they say that I want to be able to stop working, but people who work that way tend to never stop working. But maybe do the things you actually want to work at rather than things you have to work at.
Exactly. Like, and I think the real estate world, like both of us actually enjoy doing it. At this very moment, we don't have the ability to like dive in and still be making the salaries that we're making at our work. We're kind of gearing ourselves up to not work until we're 65, but do something we enjoy.
And even that too, like we were looking for options as to like, how can we unlock that time, or how can we kind of work towards financial freedom? And, you know, we turned to stocks and we're still in it. But, you know, like when real estate really popped up in our lens, we both like got the passion of it. Like I remember one day I was looking at a YouTube video and it was about the Smith maneuver on how you can, you know, how you can have like, you know, your mortgage interest as tax deductible and all these things. And, you know, you can pay down your principal mortgage faster. And like, I was pacing back and forth. I was like, hooked. This is crazy. Power of the equity growth is truly like mind blowing. Of course, in the last 2 years, it's been crazy. On average, when you're getting 3 to 5% on your equity or whatever, it really does not compare to how much you would save in terms of just working, you know, your 9 to 5, just saving in general, just putting cash in the bank. It just like is so fast, and
it doesn't compare as in like it's you can save more doing what?
Real estate.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like it's just mind blowing, and I didn't really realize this until it actually happened. That like, how can I actually save for myself doing what I'm doing? Trading time in 150 grand, whatever it is, doing what I do at work. So it's a positive thing that I realized, and it's kind of a mind blowing thing, and it really is a good vehicle too.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say, and I wonder if you found this too, that getting from your first property, once you get into the first property, getting to your second property is easier, but you know, getting from second property to third, it starts to get harder and harder as you start to scale. And I think one of the reasons is even in the equity part, you talked about being able to save the money. There's no capital gains taxes on that, so that's like tax-free money that you can potentially make on your first property. People realize that there's no way I'd ever save that.
Exactly. And like the power of it all, it's just motivating, because instead of like waiting for, you know, the fruits of your labor later on in life, it's like, whoa, like it's faster. And it's funny because when we got our second property, when we took out the equity from that first property to put as a down payment, our main mission was, okay, we read about house hacking from like Bigger Pockets. We read about house hacking. We're like, okay, let's get a property potentially like we can renovate and then have a down payment, and then we got a fixed fixed rate, because we were thinking
we're going to have this for 5 years. We'll think about it then. But like, it just moved so fast. 3 years old I was when we got our house. When was I going to save $100,000 to buy a house? Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So obviously I was very lucky in the sense that I was with Adrian, so we could use the down payment or like the equity from his prior house. When we started growing our business, still, like if we had to save that from our like hard-earned cash, like it's just not going to happen. So as they always say, like time in the market is better than timing the market.
Sure. Get into real estate and wait. Don't wait to get into real estate.
Exactly.
So you guys have picked up a few properties since you've started, and you've been scaling your portfolio now, and you've made certain decisions, like what type of properties, like whether it's rental property, single family, duplex, like is it a certain type that you invest in, or?
Our strategy right now is to like keep it as pretty much duplexes, because that's where we can get cash flow. Will that be our strategy down the road? I'm not sure. Like we might try to pivot to something more on a larger scale, but for right now, that's really working for us. For our houses, we have 3 duplexes and the first single family, which is the one he lived in initially. That is essentially our strategy. We're looking to make one of our duplexes a triplex.
Yeah.
Essentially, like we're not, getting huge cash flow, but it is working for what we were anticipating it to do. And that's what our strategy was out of the gate.
Yeah, and then going forward, we're going to review our portfolio and see, and then have the equity grow a little bit as well, and then hopefully kind of like Monopoly, where you trade two houses for one big house.
Red house time, yeah,
exactly. So hopefully we can get there. But again, with the timeline, you think that maybe it's in 5 years, and then all of a sudden it's like you're doing it in 2.
Yeah.
So like that's exactly what happened with the growth, I guess, the acceleration of growth
for sure.
In the last couple of years that we had, that because we never really expected the market to swing this way. Also, it gave us the knowledge and the education through courses, and also even like listening to podcasts on the way to your rental property, like even that knowledge growth has allowed us to take confidence in, if an opportunity pops up, analysis paralysis. We weren't paralyzed by just analyzing. We actually took the necessary steps to take actions for it, because otherwise we would have quote unquote missed the boat. But I don't think that that's really a true statement where you missed the boat.
That's actually very interesting. And you made certain decisions between now and then. Like I know you mentioned actually the mortgages that you went for, and you went for fixed, I think you guys said.
Yeah.
So now a lot of people are feeling that the real estate market is unstable and that, interest rates are rising, things are getting more difficult. Do you feel that your fixed rate decision was better at the time, now riding into this market? Do you have any mortgages coming up for renewal that might be worrying you?
Some of the programs that some of these A lenders have are actually really, really good. I actually recommend it all the time to my friends who come up to me like, hey, do I go with fixed or variable? And I always ask them like, it depends on what your plans are. So our latest property, we have the variable just because we did not exactly know how we wanted to access the equity sooner. And also, we also didn't know exactly if we were going to let go of that. So it was kind of in the mix, but we went with variable on that one. But our other properties are fixed. However, we can access the equity. For example, we're in Scotiabank. So we love the STEP program that we were able to access the equity without breaking or paying any penalties. So in that regard, like I think that we definitely, do you agree that we made the right decision?
I'm in the relationship, I'm definitely more the conservative one. So like I would prefer to know exactly what I'm paying each month and what the cash flow is every month. So like with the first variable home, getting the mail isn't always fun when it's like your rate has gone up, but there is benefits to having the variable rate and having that flexibility to like offload if you needed to or tap into the equity. I think both of them have been okay. Like honestly, in the situation, obviously banks are interested in having you continue to lend with them. In most cases, for like Home Trust and Scotiabank, it's been all right with the fixed rate. To answer your question about like the volatility and if we have any renewals coming up, I think I would still go variable just because like I imagine in the next 5 years, we're going to be taking steps with the houses that we have right now to either offload or to take more equity out to continue growing. So variable would be a better rate for us. And the fluctuations that come with that is just natural, whether it's lower or higher. People were benefiting from it for 2 years, but now it's going higher. It's a trade-off. It balances itself out in the end.
That's the type of thing is that when it comes to, your real estate investing journey, I feel like a lot of people always want to know like, how should I do this? Are these the steps? But really it's a more like, leaf in the wind, be water, kind of adapt to the circumstances of the market, make the best decisions for you at the time. And even as what you're saying, for the mortgages, people sometimes want to know, should I go for fixed? Should I go for variable? But really, it has to do with your own stress tolerance.
Exactly.
Like, if you say, I like consistency, I like to be able to plan, you shouldn't maybe get variable if it's going to, not allow you to sleep at night. You're not going to be a very great real estate investor.
In our case, sometimes our margins are lower, right? Yeah. So it's like our cash flow, if the variable rate goes to a certain extent, then we're paying to own that house. So we wanted to make sure that when we signed up for variable that we're not going to be in that situation. So we gave ourselves quite a big buffer room. So I think preparing in advance for like swings in the market is really important for you to like choose variable or fixed.
And then also kind of like looking at your home, analyzing, is this the best use of that home? For example, the one that we have that is a duplex, we have an oversized garage and a workshop attached to it. Can we make it a third unit to offset any potential swings in the market, even if it goes up to 10%? We know that the market is going to swing inevitably. We're taking our own actions. We're not waiting for the government or the Bank of Canada or the big hedge guy to kind of like, we hope he lowers it down a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
So no one's going to save you. You got to save yourself.
So you got to save ourselves, right? And I think in lower interest environment, then you have more cash flow in higher investment. So we're positioning ourselves to really maximize the use of the home, and not only that, like you'll gain cash flow, but then you'll also kind of force appreciate that home because it's because now you've changed the functionality of that home kind of thing. So
you don't quite realize just how much knowledge you have and how many things you know by these experiences. And often they might seem nuanced, right? Like things to do to help you weather the storm, obstacles that you may have to overcome. And, I know you mentioned people, you help some of your friends like that come to you every now and then and will want to know how to get into it, because I'm sure, I know it happens even with myself that when friends or family or, people, coworkers, anybody sees what it is you're doing and is working out well for you, people want to know, how do you do it, right? And it sounds like from the experiences that you have, you'd have a lot of good insights to share, working jobs, how do you start to get investment income? It reduces your employment taxes, things that you can write off, right? So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So to that, I want to know, what do you feel was maybe your biggest challenge in, this, whether it's as a couple, whether it or if that was had certain advantages or struggles, or even as it comes to scaling up, how do you put, whose name do you put the property under, who holds the debt, all this kind of stuff. Like, what do you think was maybe the biggest challenge?
Well, there's a couple things. So like,
oh, I'm in trouble. I was kidding.
No, but I think like we both, like I said, had parents dabbling in the market, but like neither were a true expert in what they were doing. So it did kind of feel like we were carving our own path. So I think in some capacity it was like, we're taking this risk and it's like, hopefully it works out. But luckily, obviously it did. And we were educated. It was an educated risk. And then secondly, I would say like, given the time of life that we're in, like being this young and like all the things that you're already dealing with, well, we're getting married, buying a house, having a dog, like all these little things that happen, like it just gets really overwhelming sometimes. Not the actual landlording side of things, but like the analysis of properties, the visiting properties, the finding right locations. Like there is a lot of work that goes into that. It's all worth it in the end, but that can be like really taxing. You have to, be a good partner and be able to speak to your partner when you're in, like it's a business at the end of the day, right? We are a relationship, but first is a relationship. Yeah. But secondly, we're also business partners. And I think being able to communicate that as partners in business is like, you have to be really strong with that, because you don't want to be like resenting each other for decisions or being rash and making these decisions, and then one person not being on board with that.
Is there anything that has happened that was difficult, not what you expected, that ends up being something you bring home? Because again, when you're in a relationship with somebody that you're in business with, the strength is that, this is your partner. The difficulty is that you bring this home with you. I
mean, I do kind of feel like sometimes we bring too much home, like, because it's like a passion of both of ours. So we'll be like geeking out, but also when we're not geeking out, we're also freaking out. So it's like both. But when contractors change your mood, like for example, Adrian's been frustrated at a contractor recently, and like, I don't want it to total his whole day. The moods that you can go through, it's like a job, right? So if you have a bad day at work, you shouldn't really bring that home, but it's natural. So like, being able to communicate with your partner, like, okay, I understand it's going bad, but like, we have to.
I'm not trying to take it out on you. It's just this guy is, you know what I mean?
But I guess there's frustrations, and I mean, we're both each other's support person, so it's going to come home either way. I have had times where I've been like, okay, not talk real estate today. Like, let's just put that away.
And then honestly, I think when you go into, I guess, business with your significant other, because I know that like there's so many different advices out there, like don't go get into business with family and things like that. Like it is very difficult, but I think the foundation of it all, if you are before you even start the business together, I think having that mutual agreement that we will be honest with each other about our feelings, to make sure that we don't make decisions without consulting one another, and like pretty much doing each other, like stabbing each other in the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think, and also just prioritizing the relationship first before the business. I think that might actually kind of help. And because I wouldn't want to get divorced, before, and then just to keep a couple of houses.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I'm smiling at you because I'm thinking, wow, you guys sound so healthy. It's disgusting, right? Like, no, but this is good.
But I don't know. Like, I feel like.
Do you just know this stuff, or is this stuff that like you experience and learn, or you read it somewhere? Because it sounds like very academic. It's like, you have this down to a science, how to do real estate as a couple,
I'll post the citations after.
Yeah.
The relationship is, Adrian's very forward. He's so excited. He is like so passionate. And I am also, but I'm much more conservative, and I'm like very analytical. So it does have a good balance where I'm like, okay, cool your horses, because we need to think about this before we move on things. And like the numbers have to be right. And
yes.
So
I'm very ideal.
And then Adrian's like, you don't believe in me.
I'm very idealistic and she's very realistic. And kind of like that balance is actually really good for us because,
it gets us to the opportunity, but like it's a well thought out opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
So,
yeah.
Actually, you know, and I was reading something, I can't remember where, but I know they were talking about how when you have a team, it's good to have offense, it's good to have defense, right?
Yeah.
You know, somebody, you know, picking up the back end, somebody picking up the front. And even both in offense, you can have a successful team, but if you're both in defense, it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
So actually, like the balance, it sounds like it would work
Yeah.
very well.
Like it definitely needs thorough discussion for sure. Like, you know, like why do we need to spend money on this? And then, you know, like in terms of what she would say, and I'm like, well, we gotta, you know, invest in our, like, you know, things like that, like the offense and defense type of thing.
Definitely.
And,
like I agree with that.
It's kind of what you were saying in your video recently, where, you know, you have to invest in your investments. And sometimes when you just play defense all the time, then it can land you in trouble. So yeah, I completely agree with you with like having both on the defensive end. And you're just waiting for the first or like the bad thing to happen kind of thing. But anyway, so to go back to your challenge questions as well, is that one of the biggest things for us in the very, very beginning, when it was just in the idea stage, where both of our families were kind of doubting, and I would say doubting, but like also even like family, friends, and
coworkers,
and most of those people are just like, oh, I have a sister who's a real estate agent. I mean, a real estate investor who
had
you know, a terrible time, and then, you know, and things, absolutely, those things happen, but not enough for you to be discouraged and not do it. I think, right? Like, I think those things are valid, but yeah, so I think that was the biggest challenge because we didn't have a mentor. We didn't have anyone to talk to. So all we had was really ourselves, who we didn't have any experience, but we're like, I don't know, like, should we listen to these comments? And like, do we not do it? Because what if they do happen?
Yeah. And like at the end of the day, I remember us being like, well, I would fix a toilet for somebody to pay the mortgage. Like, you know, it's the trade-off there is worth it.
Right.
Even if people are going to say that like, that's a lot of work or that you're going to get the 2 a.m. phone call. Like that's the classic thing that people doubt you on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those things were definitely like, we thought about them because it's coming from people of influence, but it's like, it's not enough to hold us back.
That's always one of the things, and you're not the first people to say it. There's plenty of people who will say oftentimes that it is the people closest to you that will cast the most shade very often, and it's coming not from a negative point very often, sometimes coming from a position of, I want to protect you. I want to make sure that you know the truth. You need to go eyes wide open. But the thing is that, you know, and I think this is one of the main difference between people who will pull the trigger versus people who don't, is that there are always a million and one reasons why you cannot do something or why something won't work. But you just need one way for things to work. It sounds like, you know, you're even when you're looking at it not so emotionally. You're just like, yeah, I'm going to pay this to fix the toilet so that my tenant pays for the bills, which pays for the mortgage. It's a very methodical thought process, right? As opposed to, he broke the toilet, I'm not paying for that. It's very emotional. And a lot of people do that. And then they start focusing on the wrong things. They're focusing on the $500 toilet bill as opposed to their $500,000 investment.
Long-term investment,
right?
exactly.
And like you said, like, I'm not saying it as though that they were coming from like hater type of lens, for sure, because I know they're our biggest supporters now. And I think it's just coming from that fact. And, and for those who are like kind of going through that same situation, get into the mindset that they're only saying this to try to protect you and to try to keep you on the safer side.
Like the path that's always traveled. Like, it's like, oh, just take the safe route. But it's like sometimes that lends you, like, gets you to a place where like you're not totally fulfilled. I mean, what a better time to try when you're young too.
You can take a few scrapes and bruises.
Exactly. Yes.
And thinking of our why, which we like kind of alluded to earlier, I think that helped too. It's like, why are we doing this? You know, like, are we doing this only simply to get rich and buy a Ferrari? No. Right? Like,
would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be nice. I mean, maybe in the future. Though the why was to be able to kind of free up some time to spend with one another, and I think that helped us pull that trigger to do it, despite all these negative things and kind of naysayers around us. That helped us to kind of pull the trigger to
also
say
lights
that, like,
a fire under your butt to actually do something else, because it's like, okay,
maybe it was necessary.
I'll prove you wrong.
When you're talking about this, it really is enlightening, especially from a couple's perspective, because, you know, these things, you know, it's hard to work with people, but it can go two ways. It can either go where, like, you know, the stress is a burden on the relationship, and another where is like when you have something that you are successfully working towards, it actually brings you closer together, aligns you, and and brings focus. So it seems like it's having a very healthy effect on the two of you.
Yeah, I think so too.
Has there been anybody who ever casted shade? Right? Casting shade might not be the exact word, but is anybody who was like telling you, "Oh, are you sure you guys want to be doing this?" That you've now managed to maybe encourage to get into it, having seen what you've done?
You're thinking my dad. I'm thinking
Hey, Rich.
No, my dad, like I said, is a flipper his whole life. We were talking about this last night, and we're saying like, he has his own way of doing things, and I'm his little daughter. So it's like, he obviously, it's hard.
And it's very profitable, by the way. It's working out for him.
Yeah. But when we started making this work for us, he realized that like that could have been a retirement fund for him if he kept one or two of those houses that he got super cheap off market, flipped and sold, right?
Yeah.
He made the profits when he did. Well, he was an entrepreneur his whole life, so he doesn't necessarily have a pension or anything like super strong to like, hold over as he retires. So
very old school.
Yeah. So if he had like a duplex, like I remember he had one near Mohawk that he renovated. It was super nice and he sold it. But if he kept that, like that alone could have been like, there's no mortgage on it, right? So it's like, that's strictly your retirement fund, which is amazing. He definitely sees that now, I think, at least if you're watching this, Dad. But yeah, he'd probably be like the number one person. Adrian's dad was always on board, but couldn't really get the buy-in from the rest of the family.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's exactly like that. Because I think when I was growing up, it was the rental, not industry, but I guess kind of like real estate investing was not looked at in a very good sense, because my mom eventually did buy in, but they had one bad experience, and from there she never bought back in. So then my dad really wanted to get into it, but yeah, so that's why it was kind of like we were dabbling into real estate, but our parents never really encouraged us to get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that a bunch of my friends, I don't think they were ever throwing shades. Maybe they just had doubts because they didn't know how it worked. And now, like, we have multiple friends that are actually doing it.
A lot of our friends rent. They have landlords that maybe don't treat them and whoever they live with that great. When you mention that you're going to be a landlord, like they obviously think that you're going to be doing the same. You're not going to be treating people, or like you're just giving them the bare minimum to live with. But like one thing Adrian and I pride ourselves on is like having a place that we would live in. Like, because we wouldn't want to like give a place that's missing stuff or safety or whatever it is to our tenants, because our friends are truthful with us about their rental experience. So like, it's nice to have that lens where like, we're not out of touch with how it really is and how poor some landlords treat their business, but that's not something we're interested in doing.
And then and at the end of the day, like she's customer success and I'm a nurse. We deal with people all the time. And I think being a landlord, it's a people business over like like here's a house and you live in it. It's a people business, like first and foremost. And I think we pride ourselves in having that, not necessarily like a friend's relationship. We still keep a professional relationship, but a good relationship nonetheless, because we need to work with them rather than like, waiting for their next email to say like, oh, no, that's not, what I mean? Like, like there's many things that you can look at as like, oh, they're complaining again, but like, are they complaining or?
Personal but professional.
Yes, exactly.
So,
exactly.
You don't learn this type of stuff in school. You learn this stuff through a degree of experience. It's an element of your character. And then people will see this and you see the results of it because, it seems like it's working out well. And if your dad was able to, see what you're doing and decided to start doing this as well and has, let's just say, seen the light. It's actually the biggest compliment if, someone from your family sees that, because those are the hardest people to admit that, my daughter's doing right. I should do what she's doing. That's a tough one, right?
For sure.
So because you guys started your real estate investing journey relatively young, do you guys now have friends? Because it seems like this would actually be the age roughly around your 30s that people will start to, look into real estate or, have been and want to get into it. Since you guys are ahead of the game, has anyone reached out to you guys to see how they can do what you're doing?
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's multiple people that have actually reached out, and we love, like, that's the one thing that we kind of are both mutual on. We like to say that we're new to the game or we're beginning our journey, but I think that, like you mentioned earlier, you actually know more than you think you know. And so we love sharing that knowledge from like experience and also what we have learned. And we've talked to countless of of our friends, but 5 or 10 of them are probably like between that number have actually done their action, and now is like one friend of ours is going to be house hacking their house soon, renovating the basement. My sister, she's also done the single family rental and all that stuff. So like you said, like it's kind of like an indirect compliment in a way that what we are doing is what other people want to do, and they're seeking our advice out of anybody and to kind of like help them out. And that's kind of what we're passionate about is helping people out.
Yeah.
Does that ever seem intimidating when your friends are asking you for that kind of advice? That seems like a heavy thing to tell somebody, especially and I'm asking because I know when I had to give advice to a friend of mine, I was thinking about do they really have this in them? Because you know what you have to emotionally be able to handle when you're doing this. Like, do you ever feel afraid giving out advice to your friends?
Okay. So I agree. I think you kind of like have to vet the person as to like, you know, would you feel comfortable doing that? But I think you can always start small, right? Like if the situation was like a lot of them we find start with like a duplex situation, or at least like the potential for a duplex as like a good first start, one to like paying down your mortgage through rent, but also like if you like that, then you can continue to grow, right? So it's like one tenant that like literally lives with you. It's pretty easy to manage.
And yes, it is intimidating in a way, and that the way we counteract that is by being completely honest and transparent, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as we know. It's an active business. It's not a passive income business. We definitely let them know that here's like some of the things that we have faced, and here's the challenges that we have faced. And if you think that can be something that you can face and overcome, and you think that that's not a big deal and that's not a hindrance for you to actually get into the market and be a landlord, then you know you've given them kind of like an educated decision on what they should do. Not like, yeah, you should do this because, man, I've gotten so much money from it, and look at
like totally overinflated.
Yeah,
it's like,
and we know that it's challenging.
Going back to your point about like helping friends or people, like we always believe in like the vacation theory, where it's like when we're older, we all want to go on vacation, but you don't want to have to pay for like all your friends. But if you lift everyone up, then everybody can come on your vacation and, you know, hold their own type thing. So I don't know. I just think there's enough for everybody in the market. And if you lift people up and help them along the way, then it can never be a bad thing. Also, like if they get in the market and then they regret it or whatever, I think, you know, you're starting on your equity journey. So like even if you know, something went wrong with the real estate market or whatever your opportunity, at least you're like getting in the door type thing. So I think it's been a win overall, but we haven't really had like people be super, maybe like overwhelmed. Like the first 2 months of having a home is always difficult. You always find the little nuances in the house where it's like,
you have money
our vent
and
doesn't
now
work.
you don't.
And like things don't work as you thought. So like those parts are always like, those are the growing pains for sure. Every house has that. But once you get over that, like things will, you know, you just have to weather it and you'll get to the well-oiled machine that you want to be.
From the sounds of it, it does sound almost like when you're first getting started and doing it this way, that it is almost like having an extra job, right? And it is like, it is work, right? And it's not that idea of, oh, I'm going to buy real estate, it's going to be easy, I'm going to collect rent. You know, it's like maybe when you step back and you look at it, it might look a little like that. But people don't see the grind of like taking the problem home at night, having to go for a full day of work, and then, you know, having to also see your tenants' calls or, you know, contractor calls or whatever it is that you have to deal with. It is work in order to make things happen and to control the budget.
Definitely.
Right. So no, that's all very interesting. So with everything that you guys have experienced right now, I want to ask, if you had to do things over again, would you do it differently?
Like if things weren't working out, it'd be an easy question to answer. What would you change if there was anything?
I think that I would enjoy, I don't know, like I wish that, I mean, we try to get as much education as possible from literally every reason. Like if you thought about a program already, we've tried it. So it's like, we really tried, but
you do a YouTube channel on reviews of programs.
We should really.
But I think if we could do it again, like this is a dream, of course, going back, but like having a true mentor, like somebody who's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe what you do with that, like to give us some options. Cause like we were just kind of rinsing and repeating what we knew was working. So like you and Pang have been really helpful and kind of turning the wheels in our brains to think about other opportunities. But like, I think like that would be really fun. But I don't regret what we've done we were moving a little fast with the fourth property, which is when we had to be like, okay, we're getting married. We need to slow down and maybe just enjoy our 20s for a hot sec. But I think I wouldn't change the way.
Yeah. And going with that, the mentor point as well, is that like the reason why we love helping people is because we didn't have that resource. And we're like, man, I wish that somebody would just kind of not tell us what to do, but more so just shine a light of what are the options out there. Because if you know one road, you don't know any other road. Right. So, and then like having that somebody to kind of like flash the light on different options and something to think about would have been great. However, that the lack thereof helped us also kind of discover and experience those things and kind of seek more information. So, and that's why we kind of like are passionate about like, hey, you need a hand, like I like, you know, like
So, you know, when you have these experiences, I understand why people will want to share them, right? And it sounds like, you know, you have a lot of good experience and and you've also faced a lot of very common obstacles that, you know, anybody, you know, wanting to get into real estate, working a job will probably face themselves. So if you have it to give, why not share it, right? It's very altruistic because you get karma and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So if there's anyone listening who wants to reach out to you and talk to you, how would they get in touch with you?
I mean like Instagram for sure. You can reach us on Instagram or maybe email.
But our email is so long.
Our email is very long.
We're gonna leave it somewhere here in the frame, so if anybody wants to do it. Or
actually, email would probably be the best because we can both read it, both of ourselves. But if you're on Instagram and you wanted to just reach us, just DM us whenever. Really, like we've had a couple of people reach us on Instagram as well to ask a few questions. Yeah, at Nicole Ondiano.
Very good.
I think if you are just beginning and you want some questions answered, definitely feel free to reach out to us. We would be more than happy to lead you to a resource or even just answer the question.
Or watch more Property Hustlers videos.
And watch Property Hustler videos.
Yeah. We're trying to make sure, you know, actually, we always want to make sure to like be able to add value. And I think that's also like the best way to do it is, you know, through some kind of social media outreach where people can watch. But this is also why it's really great to have you guys on our show to actually hear about some of your experiences, some of your challenges, because this is what like real people getting into real estate are going to be experiencing, right? So, and it's these perspectives that people I think want to hear. So So Adrian, Nicole, I really want to thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you guys and having you here. And for any of our listeners or people watching the video, if you guys have any questions, make sure to contact us through the information in the description. Like us, follow us, and we'll be sure to see you on the next one.